Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sunrise Today. This Monday morning, I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's unclear if it's going to rain here in Abuja, but I can tell you it's a cloudy Monday morning. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I can tell you it's already raining in Lagos. Started, I think, yesterday. Still raining now. We just got that information. So, well, the cloud looks misty and cloudy in Abuja. It's already pouring here in Lagos. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome. No, it's not raining at this time. At the time we took this, no. Trust me, it wasn't raining at this time. Just let me put that out there very quickly. But of course, this is a very popular place in Lagos, Okpebi Allen Roundabout. To your left, it goes to Toyin Street, where you can head off to the Murtala Mohammed Airport, both local and international. And straight ahead, it takes you to Allen Roundabout, where you can go right and left to Obafemi Awolowo Way. It's Obafemi Awolowo Road in Ikoyi and Obafemi Awolowo Way in Ikeja. To your right, it takes you to the Lagos State Government Secretariat, where the seat of government is. This is what you have of Lagos, our skyline this morning. I will always talk about this. Of course, that yellow stuff you can see on your screen is that of Fela Anikulapo Kuti, a monument that was moved from the Allen Roundabout to this particular place. But one thing that I always say about this place, it is extremely expensive now, but back in time, it was nothing but bush. Now, okay, let the realtors tell you what it's worth.
And I know that, the realtors in Lagos are not joking. These days, some of them even price their property in USD. They're not doing it in Naira anymore. When they do, you're wondering, hold on, who's supposed to buy that? Certainly not a salary earner. Not anyone earning a salary. But this is very interesting. Every time you look at a picture, even the one you've seen before, or even of an area that you know, if you look at it again, you might just see something new. So as I'm looking at this this drone shot, I'm seeing a wire, and I never really quite imagined that the wire was so vivid. My children will always ask, when you tell them, do this, they'll say, why? Why, Mom? And say, why has 2 branches and a very long tail? But Ayo, I know that there is no roundabout again at Allen. So why did you say Allen Roundabout? Because last time I was there, I was thinking to myself, oh, there's no roundabout here. It's disappeared. Somehow it's been demolished. You now have some sort of cross-section, I think.
Well, has the name changed?
Yeah, but he still says Allen Roundabout. It's supposed to be after the roundabout, named after the roundabout. You cannot say Allen Roundabout when there is no roundabout.
The name remains a name.
The name was named after something.
I apologize, Mark. Here is why. We still call blind man. We still call the guy blind Bartimaeus, even though Jesus healed him 2,000 years ago. So forgive me. Maybe it's just that name that's sticking. But yes, you're right. It's a cross section.
Well, go and call it that then. Let's see if the boss will not take you somewhere else.
Allen cross section.
Say no. You're speaking English, no problem.
Oh well.
You just pay a little more to get you back to your original location.
Do you remember the first time you saw this road, though?
Not quite.
You don't remember? The things we take for granted. I remember. I remember, and I know that since that time there's been a lot of changes. I think I saw it first time maybe when I was 17. Well, that's when I took note of the Allen Road, the Okpebi Allen Road. Well, things have since changed since that time. As Ayo said, it was once bush. And yeah, I do know people who lived there when it was bush. Now it is what you see on TV today. So sometimes just have a little faith. You never can tell what might become of the property you're buying in bush today and what can happen in that area.
Oh dear. All right, okay, so we'll move on. There are quite a number of things coming up today. We're trying to see if we could get updates on that disastrous treatment, shameful attitude of Libyan officials, football officials, meted to Nigeria's Super Eagles. So we're waiting to see what the government here will do about this matter. I think I'm seeing somewhere that they say, you know what, we're not going to play anymore. You can have the 3 points. But I'll be, well, should I say surprised or disappointed maybe if the Confederation of African Football don't weigh into this kind of shameful attitude all in the name of trying to play mind games. And then the captain of the Super Eagles, they tweet about all of that saying that yes, they diverted the flight for 2 hours and then we're now made to wait endlessly for what?
12 hours.
And then no food, no drink, no connection to the phones, no permission to leave the
airport.
What's that? Something airport, which is not
Benghazi Airport.
And so, all in the name of playing mind games. Look, they know they can't. Well, I might as well say it. If you want to beat the Super Eagles, beat them fair and square. Play fair and square and let the best team win. But if you want to do this so you can get the 3 points, I think this speaks volumes of African football. If CAF allows, if they don't look into this and allows this to happen for African football, we might as well just forget it.
Yeah, I want to believe that would also file a formal complaint, because sometimes it's who speaks first that gets heard. So while this is going on, I think the NFF, while they're also looking to get our players to safety and make sure that they're all right, they're still their responsibility. You know, I'm also hoping that they will be writing a formal letter of complaint to CAF with what has just transpired.
And Nigerian government, you can't keep quiet on this one. You have to speak up. You have to just speak up. We're waiting to hear what the Minister of Sports, if he hasn't heard this, of course he should have heard all of this. He should be way ahead of all of us on this kind of matters. So I'm thinking maybe before long, we should see a statement or two from the minister in terms of what steps the country is taking. Because look, these things, you know what they say, handshake and then gets to the elbow. These things happen naturally when you see citizens go to different African countries. The way they're treated is appalling. And so when governments keeping quiet, these chaps keep extending it. And then now, look at this, treating the country, the flag bearers of this country, football, this way is completely unacceptable, to say the least. So we will see what the authorities will say, and they better say something. They better say and do something. Because if not, you know how Nigerians will respond if you don't do something about all of this.
Big question I'm always asking too is, where's the spirit of sportsmanship? Because the idea behind this is also to promote friendliness amongst African nations.
These guys don't care about friendliness or spirit of sportsmanship, clearly.
But that's essentially what it's supposed to be about. So what's the point? If it's not going to be promoting any of that, then we might as well forget the game of football. We might as well forget CAF. There's no point in it. If you're not going to be playing fair and square and, you know, treating other players with, you know, dignity and equality and equity, then there's no point. It means that the entire idea behind the game of football, the existence of CAF, you know, is being questioned, is being called to question.
It would be unfortunate if CAF presidents, I think that's what they call them, if during his time this will be allowed to stick in spite of all the efforts. I think they're trying to, you know, polish the image of the game, but if they allow this stick, these things don't just happen like that. This is there for the world to see. Remember, it's a global village. You want to attract certain things, and then if they see that this is how you CAF conducts itself, or allow countries behave like this without sanction, who knows what they will do tomorrow? Who knows? Because if you allow this happen, we will see. Just for 3 points, by the way.
I think it's not just
all
the
right, so
NFL.
Let's take a look at some of the dailies this morning.
What are the most prominent issues in the news today? Find out from these papers. Let's begin with the Nigerian Tribune. Why Damagum should go. Body judge accuses PDP of violating its constitution, says interim chairman can only act for 90 days. Yayari takes over party, insists on October 24 for NEC tasks North Central to submit nominee for top post. Details on page 22. The Daily Times has a different story. Obasanjo to leaders utilize Nigeria's resources judiciously. Laments that we've squandered God's gifts. Says, I firmly believe God didn't create Nigeria to struggle. Details on page 2. Daily Independent has flight delays, cancellations, fuel call for local routes cut for airlines. Over 40,000 flights delayed, 400 cancelled in 2023. A very, very disturbing trend. Indeed, find the details continue on the inside pages of Daily Independent this morning. The Guardian newspaper has uncertainty over minimum wage execution as state governments falter. Details you find on page 6. Nigerian News Direct has reverse petrol price hike pending court verdict. Serap tells Tinubu warns of constitutional crisis. Judicial interference says petrol price increase will hurt vulnerable Nigerians. Details on page 22. Daily Trust has a different yet disturbing story. Lagdo Dam, high risk states brace for floods. NIMET predicts thunderstorms, moderate rains in Taraba, Borno, others. Governments ask residents to relocate, set up IDP camps. Find the details of that story on page 3 of Daily Trust newspaper today. The lead story of New Telegraph. Confusion as 9 PDP governors reportedly endorsed Damagum's suspension. PDP on familiar path of seasonal implosion ahead 2027 polls. On slippery slope to extinction. The details continue on the inside pages of New Telegraph. This Nigeria has contract staff practiced by banks obnoxious. You agree? Financial experts insist 70% casual workers in sector unacceptable. Urge critical intervention by CBN, Labour. That story is on page 4 of this Nigerian newspaper. The Blueprint newspaper has 34 new fighter jets to combat terrorism expected 2025. That's according to NAF. Troops seized 230,000 liters of crude, destroyed 37 illegal refineries in Niger Delta. Zamfara community guard leader survives terrorists' attack. That story continues on the inside pages of the paper. The Abuja Inquirer has frequent fuel price hike. Abuja residents worry. Indeed, all Nigerians, wouldn't you say? The details continue on the inside pages. Leadership newspaper has 3 months after food import waiver policy fails to take off. Stringent guidelines, complex policies behind failure. Food prices still on the rise. Details of that story on page 4 of Leadership newspaper today. Business Day. Manufacturers look to local inputs to ease FX pressure. Details continue on the inside pages. Vanguard newspaper has petrol crisis. FG resolves NNPCL marketers dispute as NNPCL refunds 15 billion naira to marketers after DSS intervention. Marketers, Dangote refineries set for negotiation. Delay to impact domestic market. Many outlets still shut. Experts call for instant resolution of pricing. Others, consumers should shift to alternatives. That's according to 11 PLC. Find the details of that story on page 5 of the paper this morning. And these are some of the papers we have for you today.
The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, was talking about the economy, the unemployment rate, only recently. Have a look.
Okay, I guess we're going to bring you that in a moment. And one of the issues that he's raised was always about what happens in the north. Most certainly, raising issues about some states, not being able, literally putting the future of the region at risk. And that's the same thing that's been highlighted by Doctors Beyond Borders on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Severe malnutrition rises by 51% in North. Well, you can check the details on the inside pages. A good number of other newspapers have the same story. But what's interesting about this was that in June, the same Doctors with Beyond Borders said that the issues around malnutrition in the north had risen 100% in June. Now they're saying it's risen by 51% in the north. Is that an additional rising of severe cases of malnutrition, or it's just for this? What was done then? Was there anything done at the time that this issue was raised? And these are some of the things that I think should give, particularly the states themselves, the state governments, sleepless nights. It's about people. We're not elected into office, or we didn't get these jobs just to have, a rosier life than everyone else. It is essentially to take care of the well-being of people generally. So when this is an issue, what happens now? Don't forget that when people are not getting a good life in one aspect of life, they move elsewhere. And that is perhaps also responsible for a lot of movement from the hinterlands, from some states to Abuja, some states to Lagos, some states to Rivers, and a number of other environments that people feel are doing better. So, dear governments, particularly in the north, what are we doing to reduce these numbers and make the lives of our people better? Questions, questions, questions. That's my take this morning, guys.
All right, we can now bring you the comments from the Vice President.
Nasarawa State's commitment to the Human Capital Development Program, a lifeline for our nation, is built on the collective realization that enough is enough. Enough of the cycles that have held us back. Enough of the legacies of unplanned high fertility rates and alarming maternal and under-5 mortality rates. Enough of our vulnerable populations facing low life expectancy. Enough of the distressing data on our education system, whether it is the mean years of schooling, the high pupil-to-teacher ratios, or the staggering number of youth not in employment, education, or training. The unemployment rates, the growing informal sector, and low labor force participation must be reversed. This is the dystopia our Human Capital Development Program is designed to avert under the mandate of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. For so long, as the National Economic Council, we have debated the ideal nation we wish to build and the pathways to achieve it. At the heart of this national search for solutions is the HCD program, which seeks to reverse our nation's human capital challenges by focusing on education, health, and workforce development. This is a critical work we have undertaken at the national level, and we are proud to welcome Nasarawa State as a committed partner in this cause. It is a tragic reality that the ECOWAS region ranks the lowest in the global Human Capital Development Index. This, however, should not dishearten us. Rather, it is an invitation for every country and indeed subnational entities to rise to the challenge. Every child must have access to quality education. Equitable healthcare must be the norm. And our workforce must be equipped with the skills necessary to thrive in the 21st century economy. These are not mere goals. They are the promises embedded in our Human Capital Development Program.
All right, so that's part of what we're going to start off with this morning. We've got Senator Gabriel Suswan here with us. He's the former governor of Benue State and, of course, former senator. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, the unemployment rate, the state of the economy, some of these policies are really being re-examined as to the kind of impact they're having. Yes, we know the petrol prices. We know the challenge lots of people are facing in the economy at the moment. But from your perspective, What do you think is the missing link? Why some of these things are going the way they are at the moment?
Well, thank you very much. When you have to discuss the economy of this country, it's an issue that touches and concerns all Nigerians. Because whether you talk about removal of subsidy, it impacts negatively on all Nigerians. If it is the policy of the central bank, the MPR, that is the interest rate, it impacts on businesses. If we talk about the issue of floating of our currency, it impacts negatively on the economy. And so what I think is that it is not just about talking about putting our economy together, but taking policies that can change the narratives of our economy. You have a situation where you remove subsidy. In the same vein, you float your currency. In the same vein, you increase the lending rate in your country. There's no way that economy is going to be stable. And so why I listened to the VP talked about human capital development. Yes, you develop human capital, but then you must create an enabling environment where jobs will be available. It's not just developing the people, that those people, when you develop them, what are they going to do? And that is why you have a lot of universities now, that is human capital development, that are churning out graduates. If we go to NYC camps now, where people pass out from NYC, they're in their thousands. And immediately after that, you meet a lot of them. There's this palpable apprehension among the youth who are passing out from NYC, because what is the next level? Now, you are churning out graduates. There is no there's no environment, comfortable environment for them to fit in. So you are creating rather more problems in the economy than you are solving. So my take is that what we need to do, or what the government would have done initially, was to take this policy piecemeal, not to take these major policies that will impact on the economy at the same time. You know, no country has ever recovered, no developing economy has ever recovered. If we take the instance of the Asian tigers, who even now, it's a gradual recovery. If we take Indonesia, Malaysia, in that region, it's only Singapore that was able to pull out of these economic policies where you float your currency, you now increase the interest rate of this. And no country, developing nation, has recovered from it. And so it is very scary where we are now. It is not just paying lip service to it. It is that taking actions that can address some of these issues.
Okay. Incidentally, the VP was speaking at the Nasarawa State's Human Capital Development Program as a state. So now, recently, I mean, there's been several questions concerning the states and what they have to do. Because, yes, there are questions as to what has the federal government done with the subsidy removal, the funds that were supposed to go for that subsidy. Now, it turns out that states have received a huge chunk of some of those, even though they've given their reasons and excuses. But there are many who still wonder. They think the states are not pulling their weight in the economy. And the massive unemployment rates, they are resident in the states. The transportation system that affects a lot of them in the states. And so they think the state governors have been missing.
You know, unemployment in the states, when you talk about unemployment in the state, most of these states are civil service states. Now, unemployment should not be restricted just to employment in government jobs. You know, if we go to developed economies, people who work in cafe, people who work in malls, are all taken to have been people who are employed. Now, our economy, have we created such environment for young people who want to take jobs that they can maybe pay weekly or pay daily jobs? No. And that is why I've listened to the government talking about SMS. small-scale business enterprises. Those are the kind of things that we need to encourage. It's not about employment. When we talk about employment, people focus on, let me be employed in channel television, let me be employed in the ministry. No, if we focus on that, and that is why you are talking about state. Yes, states are collecting money, but are you looking at the value of that money?
Yeah, but what have they done?
When I was governor, if you have like 10 million, it can solve a lot of problems. You can even engage in a capital project. That same 10 million now is more like 500,000 in terms of value. So yes, they are collecting a lot of money, and a lot of them have gone to a few states where I see that they're addressing issues of infrastructure. You go to most states, you see governors constructing roads, doing some flyovers and all of that, because the difference between a developed nation and a developing economy is basically that of infrastructure. And so if we have that very high rate of deficit in terms of infrastructure, and you have these people putting in money, when money have lost its value completely, because you take $1 million now, it's about 1.6 billion. So most of the companies that are into construction are foreign companies, and they now try to charge in naira, but you know that they're charging basically in dollars, because something that would have cost maybe 500 before now will be like 2 billion naira, and they're translating that into foreign currency. So you take the whole economy and discuss what is the value of our money now. Of course, our money have lost value beyond our comprehension.
Yeah, but many of them knew this before they contested elections, and they promised us heaven and earth. They're getting there now. And
as a former governor, when you are contesting, your perception of the office is different from what you meet on ground. That is a fact. Now, you contest, you make promises that you are going to do this, you are going to do that. Then you are in office. And then the resources, the assumption in the head of most people is that as a governor, money is unlimited. I woke up at times as a governor, you don't have a dime in any of the account of government, not one dime. You don't have. That's the truth.
Really?
Yeah, that's the truth. Nobody can believe that until you are there. Before I became governor, I thought that, money in government is unlimited. So now, that is not to give excuses for what some of the governors are doing. Some of them are doing well, some are doing badly. There's no doubt about that. But then we look at the value of our currency now. That is the value to an extent that it can achieve anything. Of course, no. Even that at the level of homes, the money that you use, if we're buying a bag of rice, at the rate of 12,000 naira, a bag of rice is over 100,000 now. So if they increase your salary to 300,000 now, would that have any positive impact in your family? No, because you're not just buying rice. Of course, you have a wife with children. Those children are going to school. The school fees that you were paying before, maybe school fees of your children was probably like 50,000. Now it's about 200,000. So what can 300,000 salary do to you as a person? So these are some of the issues that we have in our economy that must be addressed. How do you address them? That should be the question and the issue on the table. And
these are some of the issues that, quite a number of analysts have raised. Some of them economists too, have raised. You just raised the issue of school fees. Yeah. We're talking about human capital development. And, oftentimes you think about it in lines of education. Yeah. Nigeria, yes, government is investing, especially the federal government, investing a lot in tertiary education. The private sector has also come into that sphere. Federal government owns a few unity schools here and there. State governments own secondary schools, and local governments are supposed to be involved at the primary level. But we know that while these schools exist, a lot of them do not cater to the majority of Nigerians. Many Nigerians still pay school fees, which would have been one area where a lot of Nigerians would have been able to make savings if the education system was such that majority of Nigerians could send their children to government-owned schools. Yeah. Is it something that you think that we can get back, where governments, schools owned by governments, can be invested in sufficiently to appeal to people in the middle class to send their children to those schools?
Yeah, where we are now, I think that is quite difficult. The economy has degenerated so badly that when you now say that money should be put into government institutions at the primary level to tertiary, to secondary to tertiary, that you need a whole lot of money for you to do that. Because, for instance, you have federal universities that are owned by government. Those are universities that were some of the best even within the African region. University of Ibadan, University of Ife, Unilag, ABU, a host of them, Nsukka. Those universities have taken the backseat now. What you have now basically are private universities that most people are comfortable sending their children if you want quality education.
Isn't it a shame, really?
That is what I'm saying.
Because the promise behind the removal of fuel subsidy was that we should be able to get more resources to invest in these things. Part of the reasons why we're told that, oh, we should, we need to free our resources and we cannot be using everything to, put in one product, was so that we could get resources to put in education, in health. But so far so good. It turns out that promise now is a lie.
Well, the mistake I think that has been done is that, yes, you free some resources. Now, those resources are being shared to the state. I've never heard of the federal government saying that, we're keeping some of this money aside, even for a rainy day or for specific project. You are sharing money. There should be, just like you've done the police fund, if you said it's okay for infrastructure, let me set a percentage of this subsidy aside so that we address infrastructure specifically.
But so I thought during Jonathan's government, they tried to save.
That is what I'm saying. Now, this government, with the subsidy, I've never heard that. I don't know whether that is being done.
No, but the former governor at that time said, no need to save. Share the money now.
And he was there then.
No, I was there. You say that is what the problem is. Now, Obasanjo insisted and saved some money. Now, as president of the country, if you think that there are monies that are available or excess of those monies and that some part of it should be saved, it will be done so. During Obasanjo, under the then Minister of Finance, Ngozi, we were able to save some money, but I think that money was expended shortly after.
But it was under the threat of going to court, under the threat of going to court. And remember, a number of issues had to be settled out of court in the Yar'Adua era.
Let me tell you what happened. Yar'Adua was the person who called us as governors. You recall that monies were put together for the power project. When you heard they said that 12 or 16 billion were expended. Yar'Adua called all the governors and said, look, gentlemen, we need to impact very well on the power sector. And the federal government alone cannot do it. So let us contribute money at the local government level, at the state level, and then put that money in a pool where we address the deficit in the power sector. All the governors accepted. That money was put in place. And that is why we're able to complete some of these 10 NIPP projects around the Niger Delta. That is Nigerian Integrated Power Project, NIPP project. So if a president wants, he can sit down with the governors and strategically plan as to what to do. And that was what Yar'Adua did.
Yeah, so that was for the NIPP. But yes. I remember clearly for the excess crude account, that account was virtually under threat almost every year because governors were threatening to take the president to court over the legality of the existence of that account. Much later, the Okonjo-Iweala, led finance ministry came up with the idea of a sovereign wealth fund for the country, which she marketed vigorously. But the governors were against it. I think the most that we could put in that account was $1 billion or so.
No,
and it doesn't, we don't recall that.
It was more than that. You see, if, like I said, when Yar'Adua sat down with the governors then, I was part of that meeting and had an agreement. It's different from you working up as president, knowing the constitution of our country, state clearly that this should be shared between the subnational and the federal and the local government at the local government levels. Now, Yar'Adua engaged us, said, look, I'm going to take part of local government money, I'm going to take the state, and the federal government is going to also contribute to the pool. And there was no agreement, there was no court, there was no governor agitating that, yeah, our money has been taken to a pool to address this power project. And what was the catch? He said that once this power project are completed, are marketed, then these monies will be returned. As I talk to you, no one dam has been returned to any state, as far as I know. Those projects have not been privatized where individuals or private sector will come in. But the governors have a stake in this NIPP project. That is why you have the vice president as the chair, and then you have 6 governors across the 6 geo zones. From each zone, there's a governor representing who is a director on the NIPP board. It gives them, so nobody is making noise about that. But a situation where you work up as president and decide that monies meant for subnationals will be arbitrarily taken by you because you are president, that will lead to the kind of situation which you are talking about.
So are you saying that the governors were not carried along for the Sovereign Wealth Fund? Is that what you're saying?
It wasn't a proper, you see, I'm talking to you of something that was involved. Yar'Adua called all the governors. You've never heard any governor make noise about that money that Yar'Adua elicited our support to take for a purpose. Now, when as president you are making press conferences and saying that you want to save money, and these monies are meant to go to you and me, and I'm not properly consulted, even if you are the one you agitate.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that President Jonathan did not consult the governors enough?
No, there wasn't any proper consultation. I would have known that. There wasn't any proper consultation. Yes, they were talked about that, but then proper consultation are sitting us and saying, look, this money, this is for what purpose it's meant for. This is how it is going to impact your state. You know, Yar'Adua told us the impact that the power sector is going to have on various states and the economy of this country. And every person could relate to that.
So are you saying that as governor, you were not in support of the Sovereign Wealth Fund?
Not that I wasn't in support. I wasn't properly consulted. There are two different things.
So if you were consulted, would you have supported it?
Of course, yes. Because, you see, as a country, we need to save money for a raining day.
Yeah, but when we saw what it was meant for, couldn't government say, okay, look, let us go higher. Fine, you didn't consult us, but this is good. But next time out, consult us properly.
You know, unfortunately too, we were stressed. You know that when I was governor, I'll take, for instance, in Benue State, the whole monthly allocation, the highest from my 8 years that I was governor that I took was 6 billion. Otherwise, it was 2.53 billion. And then you had this whole gamut of infrastructural deficit that you have to deal with. You have salary issues, you have gratuity, you have pension and all of that. And so everywhere where there was any kobo, your eyes were there. So when suddenly there was some excess money somewhere and monies that could solve your problem at the state is being kept somewhere, said to be kept by somewhere by the federal government, and without proper consultation, when you are entitled to that money, you know you're going to talk. Even at Yar'Adua's time, we had this problem, but like I said, he spoke with us and said, look, I'm taking this percentage. So every person who left there couldn't turn back and say, look, they're keeping our money somewhere, we don't know where it's going, we don't know what impact it will have. Okay. It was the difference.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Before we go into politics, let me ask you, Benue is significant to food security in this country. So what is it that you think should be done, and why do we still have some of these challenges today? Because many think if Benue put in place some very strategic policies, we should have been talking about challenges of food as we are today.
The problem in Benue is that of insecurity. You know, over the years, from Senator George Akume's time to my time to Otom's time up to now, Benue, that is, we are talking about close to 20 years of continuous insecurity in Benue. And these are basically peasant farmers. But because the aggregate farming activities there is very high, that is why Benue is a food basket. But once you have insecurity, people are being killed in farms, they can't go to their farms. It will be difficult for you to strategically plan anything. And that is why the farming activities in Benue have drastically reduced because of the insecurity. That is beyond a governor. It's beyond any governor. Federal government have to step in. And efforts, governor in, governor out, have tried consistently for the understanding of the federal government. I think that why federal government will feel that, yes, there is insecurity in this state. They don't know the magnitude of it. And so intervention from federal government have not been commensurate with the level of insecurity in the state. Now, it got worse during Otom's time. It has even escalated during the current governor's time. So the federal government should take more interest in addressing the issue of insecurity, just like what happened, you know, we are all Nigerians, we know what happened in the Northeast, where at that time, no local government in Borno was working. All of them moved to Maiduguri. So at that point, you can't say that people should go and farm. You can't farm. So ditto for some states in the Northwest. And then in the North Central, Plateau, Benue, and Taraba, to some large extent, are the ones that are impacted heavily by this insecurity.
Is that to suggest that if the local governments were properly constituted, they can't have any impact whatsoever? I know that there were recent complaints about the LG elections there.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the collapse of the local government in our state also have, I would say, have enhanced.
Has it collapsed, really?
Yeah, you would say so, because we're operating a democracy. I'm not exonerating myself as a governor. I did the same thing that these current governors are doing. So no person should...
What was that? Right results?
Of course, no person should pontificate. Oh. I've seen some of my colleagues who have found themselves on the other side trying to pontificate that this is not right. When you were there, what did you do to change the narrative? Nothing. And so if you have a child, that child sees you beating your wife, his mom, every day. He grew up believing that it is the right thing to beat a woman. That is what has happened. Those governors who are the current governors saw what we did. So why should there be an exception? I think what should happen is that if this is not working and is creating problem in the society, all of us as stakeholders should sit down and say, look, this is not working. This thing about local government election is not working. But to now begin to pontificate and say that, this thing, it's not right. You've done the same thing, because most of the people I've seen them who are in the Senate talking are former governors who did worse than what the current governors are doing.
For you, why did you do it? Is it that you couldn't genuinely get people to support your plans?
You see, because that is the system that I met.
But you could have changed it.
You see, yes, it is possible that one person can initiate changes. But in politics, in the political space, that is something that is quite difficult for any one person to do if you are not the president. Look at what the president did. He had the powers. He went to court, asked for the interpretation of a particular section as it relates to local government funding. And the Supreme Court said, look, money should be sent directly to elected local government. Most of us, governors, would prefer to have caretaker committees because there are people that you just appoint and then you can treat them as you want. The president, by virtue of that interpretation of that section, have compelled each governor, each state, to have an elected executive in place. But being elected, you know, you can say you are elected when in actual sense you are appointed, because in virtually all the state there has been no election. So you can't single out any one particular governor and say, look, this governor has not done election in his state. It is something that started towards the end of Obasanjo's tenure, went into Yaradua, Goodluck, President Buhari, and now President Tinubu. So now, if we now find out, and this is what it has done, the rural economy of this country has totally collapsed because there's no commerce going on. You know, once the local government are operating very well, there will be commercial activities because there will be money moving around. To that extent, you have a lot of these youth who will stay back in their rural areas. What has the collapse, the non-functioning, proper functioning of local government has led to the total collapse of the rural economy. And that is very dangerous. That to some extent would dovetail into a collapsed society. And that is where we are headed to. So once the democratic system at the local level is no longer functioning properly, as it is now, we must pay attention to it. I think the president should take more attention, because if that collapse, it creates more problems. That is why you're talking about unemployment. Yeah. Most of the youth you see even in Abuja now walking the street are youth that would have ordinarily stayed in their local government. Some are happy being employed in the local government. Now, there's nothing in the local government. So they must look for a living in urban centers. And most of these urban centers are state headquarters, the federal government capital. This is where they are drifting to. And what happened, the consequence of that is vices that you see: kidnapping, stealing, snatching of phones on the street, all kinds of vices, prostitution at the highest level. In Abuja here, it will amaze you what is going on. Young graduates who are girls will come here, hire one room, stay like 20 of them in one room, and then try to sort out themselves. It is because of the collapse of the rural economy of this country. And I believe that the government should have looked at the interest rate. You see, when you take certain measures, you say you want to control the cash flow in the system. What about the businesses? Now, the MPR is 27.5%. If we go to borrow from a commercial bank, it's about 34, 37. Which business, even Yahoo business, cannot pay such money? So which business, which means that in effect, you've totally, in trying to address one problem, you've killed the small and medium scale enterprises within the country. And those are the ones that sustain an economy. When you talk about GDP of a country, the aggregate growth product of a country, it is not the employment in government. It is the economic activities which include, of course, these small and medium scale industries. If we go to developing economy, that is why they say they're developing, because every business, every employment, if somebody who is serving in a cafe, he's said to be employed, and his family is happy because he's paying their bills. Here, you've killed that by one single policy of trying to control the cash flow in the economy. Then you've forgotten that people who are doing businesses, who should only borrow money from the bank and sustain their business, can no longer borrow that money. Those businesses are dead. Those that they have employed in their enterprises are on the street. So look at the chain of events that happened by that single policy. Then the same person that you sent on the street cannot afford to even move from one point to the other, because you remove subsidy, transportation has gone up very high. So I think that the president should call a meeting of not just economists, because most time economists are talking theory. The practical thing on ground is that people cannot transport themselves to their offices, right? There's reduction in productivity in government. people cannot afford to feed their families. A crate of eggs that was less than 1,000 is 10,000 now. So it means that me and you cannot afford to eat egg in our houses.
Me and you, how? Me, maybe you. I doubt that you cannot afford eggs, but I'm sure I'll ask questions for you.
You're assuming that because I left government house almost 10 years.
You eat eggs like normal business.
Well, you know. Well, but I think I align with you and Chamberlain on this one. Well, Your Excellency, on this one, I think you're on your own because you are the only one in the studio with us now who is called Your Excellency, and it comes with a lot of opportunities, one would say. But, you know, let me I'll take you back to what you mentioned the other time about the funding of local government councils, particularly in the light of the decision of the Supreme Court. Part of the provision of the Constitution is that it's not just the federal government that contributes to that purse. The state governments also should contribute to that purse. In the light of what is prevailing currently now, what are the challenges that you think governors could be having depositing money into that purse for onward transmission to the local government administrations? What would be your recommendation as a former governor?
No, you see, there is what you call joint account between the local government and the state. That is what, in effect, by the implications of the judgment now, that has to stop because money will now be sent directly to local government account. You are no longer going to have that joint account that you just talked about. Now, the challenge is that the monies for local government is meant to pay primary school teachers' salaries, is meant to address a whole gamut of issues at the local level. Now, why it is good to have them control their money is going to generate a new set of problems at the local government. Because in most states, you have a lot of primary school. The monies that will come to such local government might not necessarily be enough for them to pay teachers at that level and attend to other problems. So it's going to generate a whole lot of new problems.
But that's the money from the federal government. My sincere apologies, Your Excellency.
No.
That's money from the federal government. How about the one that the states are supposed to contribute to the local government? Shouldn't they also transmit to the local governments?
I will tell you something. The state, for instance, in most states, Chamberlain talks about the issue of unemployment. You observe that most states have over-bloated salary wage bill because they need to employ people in the service. And so the state are also taking money from the same source as local government. All of them come to federation account. It's from federation account that monies are sent to accounts of state. Now they will be sent to accounts of local government. So most states don't have money to add to the coffers of the local government. Rather, most states were taking money from the coffers of local government to add up to sort out their problems, problems of salaries, problems of even projects. Now that you are going to have money going directly to the local government, a lot of states are going to find themselves in big problem. So no state have separate money that they can send to local government. Money all come from the same source. Given the fact that most states are able to generate internal revenue that will cover their own expenses and then have some excess that they can send to local government. That is the problem. States that generate internal revenue, maybe states like Lagos, maybe Rivers State, very few states are able to generate internal revenue that they will be able to cover their own expenses and then send some to the local government. But I don't think they even do that because there's so much to be done with money generated internally at the state level that I don't think any state send money to the local government. The local government themselves, by the Constitution, are allowed to generate their own revenue. And most of them do. But you don't even know what, because there's no proper supervision at the level of local government. to know what they're doing with the money that generate internally.
So I thought that the function of supervision was that of the houses of assembly at the states.
No, the local government have their own legislative houses, which are supposed to supervise the executive, but that doesn't happen because, you know, what has happened at the local level, we need to sit down properly and look at it. The local government level in this country is no longer functioning. It's not functioning anywhere. If any person say that in my state is functioning, it's a lie. Because I've been part of it, I know. It is degenerating down badly. You know, during Obasanjo's time, it was better. During Yar'Adua's time, it was better. But it had degenerated now so badly that you see what you see on television, where I saw the Imo State Electoral chairman announcing result without even calling other parties. You will call Chamberlain, you call the local, you say he's the winner, without setting the result and the other parties, what the other parties score. That is what it has gone to.
Well, I think your counsel...
You won.
My apologies. I think your counsel for a sit-down about the local government administration is something that needs to be taken very seriously. But speaking about the states, one of the issues that Chamberlain and Malkwe have raised with you earlier is that of how difficult things are for many people in the various states. So I just want to find out, seeing that according to the federal government, there is more money, more allocation to the states now since the purported removal of subsidy. So the states now tend to get more resources. Do you see a role for the states, the state governments, to ameliorate some of the pains that their people are going through, maybe in terms of food security, in terms of the transportation, healthcare, things that people pay out of pocket for? Do you see a role, a responsibility for states to step in and, you know, ameliorate some of the pains and sufferings of the people?
No, yeah, of course. You know, you are elected as state governor, you are elected members of House of Assembly of your state. The Constitution copiously makes provisions for the roles of the state as far as the issue of welfare in their various states is concerned. And that is why resources are sent to the state for that purpose. The issue of mismanagement is something that is common knowledge in our country. And if we want to talk about issues like that, this interview is not enough for us to discuss. It's something that me and you know, that there has been a lot of mismanagement over time. What it has done is that culminated to a level where it is now manifesting for even children born today to know that, yeah, there are issues in the system. Before now, most people, because you could freely move around, monies that you will pay could solve your problems, people didn't know that there's something eating the economy of this country. Now we found ourselves at that level. What we need to do is to honestly address some of these economic problems that we have. And the way to go is not just paying lip service to agriculture. Because if we take the India model, India will take a state like Benue and decide that Benue is where we're going to have agriculture. They will build roads there. They will create a region where they will build good hotels there. They will decide that we're farming rice and yams in Benue. And every person who is interested will be given monies to go and invest. When you go there, you find good schools there. So you might decide to stay there. Your children will be going to good school. So your commitment will be in that place for you to produce, whether it is yam, whether it is rice or guinea corn or whatever that you are doing. So if we adopt the Indian model and government, the federal government, consciously, in partnership with the various states, engage in comparative advantage. Benue State have comparative advantage in yam production. So we'll concentrate on that, create flour, yam flour industries in Benue, get people who are interested in doing that. If we go to Kebbi, for instance, Kebbi is going to produce a lot of rice. They have comparative advantage in that. If we go to Kano, things like ginger and other crops that they produce around those areas. So it is something that we must strategically do. It's not just giving people fertilizer. That is not enough. Fertilizer every year does not solve the problem. It is for us to be strategic. And can we copy what other developing nations? Because they have left us. India, Brazil, all those ones, Korea, all of those ones were in the same bucket as we are. But you go there now, they are far developed in terms of agriculture, in terms of industries, whatever. So we must copy from them. They were copying from us then. Malaysia came here to look at how we're treating our palm kernel. Now Malaysia is a major exporter of palm oil. We're not exporting even drums of palm oil to anywhere.
We clearly have our work cut out for us in terms of what we need to do. But we have to thank you for coming on at this point in time, Senator Gabriel Suswan, former governor of Benue State. Business Morning comes up now.
Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes and head back to the Sunrise Daily studios. We'll start from the global space where oil prices on Monday wiped out nearly all of the gains that it made last week after data showed China's inflation rate declined and a lack of clarity on the country's economic stimulus plans stoked fears about fuel demand in the world's biggest crude importer. Remember, we did talk about that big press conference that was held on Saturday that was supposed to give direction and details of the stimulus plan which China had shared, which moved the market about 2 weeks ago. Well, it seemed it wasn't so clear in spite of that. And so we see the market is reacting, and China is a major mover of the market this morning. So we'll keep our eyes on the numbers now. We see $77.80 a barrel for Brent after it was down 1.56%. That's a huge move. China is really a major mover of the oil market. WTI also down 1.6% at $74.34 a barrel. Both benchmarks gave up their gains from last week, falling by more than 1.5% on the average before recovering some grounds. Brent gained 99 cents last week, while WTI climbed $1.18. And China's deflationary pressures worsened in September. The consumer price index missed expectations, and the producer price index fell at the fastest pace in 6 months, down 2.8% year on year. This number is according to China's National Bureau of Statistics. Now, still talking about oil now, the Dangote Group, owners of Dangote Refinery, say they will commence oil exploration in the first quarter of next year, 2025. And this, they say, will bolster feedstock to their refinery. Of course, we know that crude has been a major conversation around Dangote Refinery in the last couple of weeks. According to reports by S&P Global and also confirmed by personnel in Dangote, the Dangote Group is looking to start production at its 2 Nigerian oil assets, which includes its 2 Niger Delta upstream projects and oil mining leases 71 and 72, starting with about 20,000 barrels per day before they ramp it up further. The report notes that Dangote's upstream activities are seldom discussed, and the imminent startup of production at the OMLS 71 and 72 suggests that Dangote Refinery could soon supplement its crude feeds after battling crude supply issues for months. Now, let's look at the Naira. Unfortunately, last week, according to FMDQ on their platform, the Naira depreciated, lost 1.73% at the end of last week. So we see for Friday, this is for Friday, and that loss is for the whole of last week, a summary of it. We see on NFM, there was a drop of 1.14%, closed at 1,641 Naira, 27. But that's the opening of today. While for NAFEX, it was an appreciation there, 0.5% at 1,631.4. So we've seen for most of last week and the upper week, the Naira has been in the range of 1,600 right there. We hope it doesn't hit 17. Driving towards that looks aggressive. Perhaps we'll have intervention from the central bank before the close or by the close of today, as we have noticed that they do. Remember that, I mean, economists are still asking for a more predictable intervention from the CBN. The bank and investors should know when to expect intervention from the CBN, and that may bring another kind of stability and certainty to the value of the Naira. But we haven't gotten a response from the CBN on that yet. Now, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Promotion Group, one of the special purpose groups of the association with the responsibility to promote industrial climate for building the economic activities and implementation of incentives for non-oil export, as well as creation of more incentives to attract more manufacturers. They have met and they have some suggestions. While they appreciate the policies which has been formulated by the government, they say implementation of those policies seems to be lacking.
We may all be aware that there are several export incentives introduced by the federal government, and that only a few of them are being effectively pursued. In addition, we often experience counter-policy regulations and actions from some other ministry, departments, and agencies of government that are inimical to the export business growth in Nigeria. You can, in one breath, say you are promoting exports, and some of your ministry, departments, and agencies are directly, by their action and inaction, promoting the non-performance of exporting companies. So there's need for us to focus on those things that will allow us to move in the same direction, promote export, particularly now that we have the AFCFTA, which guarantees access to more than 53 other markets. If we say we cannot compete with Europe, Asia, and America, it will be unacceptable for us not to be able to compete within the continent.
Yeah, so let's settle on that a bit. And we have an individual who was at that meeting right here in the studio. He is the Executive Secretary of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Promotion Group. Dr. Benedict Obiosa is right here in the studio. Dr. Obiosa, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us there. So we had your DG there talking at the meeting that you had last week, telling us that while there are incentives to promote non-oil exports, it does seem that implementation of those incentives have not been seen. Implementation hasn't been seen. And you are Executive Secretary to Manning, which is the body that's responsible, that's supposed to coordinate or collaborate with government on these policies. Tell us how much you have done, how much you think you have gained, and what else you need to do to promote non-oil exports, to create those incentives for non-oil exports in the country.
Thank you very much, Ini, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As a matter of fact, like the DG said during our AGM, a lot needs to still be done by the federal government. Of course, they have some incentives that are paying to exporters, but as it is, the impact of these incentives tends to be lower because of other indicators that is affecting the manufacturing sector, especially the manufacturing exporters, in terms of high cost of production, infrastructural deficiency, insecurity, exchange rates, the growing and increasing depreciation of the naira. We saw these are also things that are affecting the manufacturers. Some kind of eroding the impact of the incentive that manufacturers are getting. Recently, you see what happened even during the MPC of September. You see now that the MPRO is now 27.5%. And by the time it dictate to transcend to the deposit money banks and other financial institutions, it could go as far as 30 to or 33%.
Is there a way to create a buffer, which is the incentive we're talking about? Is there a way to create buffer for manufacturers at a time like this?
Yes. There's many things that government can do to do that. For example, let there be a different exchange rate for manufacturer. Let it be lower. Who
will pay for the difference? We're going to the way of subsidy again. We're fighting subsidy on PMS. Because if you say that, somebody has to bear the costs.
Okay, this is what is traditional globally. I can give you an example of Vietnam. I can give you an example of Australia. I can give you an example of China, India. I can give you an example of another island republic. I can even give you an example of our backyard here in South Africa. In South Africa, for example, local government, state government pays incentives. So there are different kind of incentives that government can put through for them to, to swing into action and bring about the requisite development. As a matter of fact, this whatever we are passing through today, the economic hardship, it is because the manufacturers are not on a good state as they're supposed to be. It is the absence of that is, the presence of that, the prevalence of that is causing this economic hardship, coupled with the government policies affecting manufacturers. So what they really need to do is to, inject in some policies, incentive. I just gave an example of exchange rate. They can do the one of lending rate. Lending rate. In Colombia, in fact, incentives date back to like 1959. In Colombia, for example, when they wanted to support manufacturing sector, if you are importing anything that is an input to manufacturing, what they do is that they do it duty-free. So if it's for fish sector for manufacturing, now if it's now for export, they also lower it. So they expanded like that, started growing like that. Even from the mid-60s in Colombia, they started doing that. So in South Africa, they do similar. Even supporting their entertainment, like our own Nollywood, they support it. If you go to what do you call this country, Vietnam goes as far as supporting those who want to build schools and a recreation center. Centers where they can support people learning technical skills and things like that. Apart from the manufacturing, most of these countries have gone beyond just exchange rates. So the lending rates goes down. They do a lot of waivers that helps the manufacturer to be competitive. There is ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme as ETLS for members manufacturing in Nigeria or ECOWAS that can export to any other ECOWAS country without paying duty. But when you manufacture under a very intense and high cost of production, even when you get to Ghana, you are not competitive. So governments can lower the cost of production. It can give you more incentives like lowering cost of production, exchange rate that I mentioned, cost of borrowing today that I mentioned. They can lower that and it will help them a great deal. And they can also go as far as cost of energy. Energy is very, very wonderful today. You know that. It's wonderful today when you come to how much they are paying to produce. So that's why even some of the products that we are having in the market, they are reducing in size and we are still paying more. And as the naira is depreciating, the dollar is going more. You buy ordinarily in economics. If the local currency is lower, it's devalued. When you export, you make more money. But it's not applicable now because as the dollar is going and we are importing more things abroad. If both of those things were being sourced locally, the raw material has been sourced locally, the machinery, spare parts have been sourced locally, beautiful. But now it's not the case. So it's not benefit the devaluation of the naira or the high exchange rate as against the naira, it's not beneficial to the manufacturers.
All right, these ideas, mostly they are not new. And have you had, your group is supposed to champion that, talk to NEPC and different government agencies on how to actually implement these intensive. How far have you gone with that? Okay,
it's a daytime job. So this we have been doing. Recently, I was in a meeting organized by Nigeria Export Promotion Council called Energize Export 3.0 series. So, and I was telling the council, thank God that the Palm Secretary and Investment was also seated, Ambassador Nura. I was telling the council and the whole world, because it was a live program, and I was live stream from NEPC. I was telling them about this. Even in January, I represented the DG of MAN, the retreat of NEPC in Badagry, and I was also talking to them about incentives. We do this every day. We go to
what's their response? What's the response?
They are working on the one that is within their purview, which is the Export Expansion Grant.
I learned that's the only surviving incentive at this time.
Yes, but the payment is always very late. So before it comes, exporters have suffered so many things.
All right. Well, we'll stay on it, stay on the matter, and hopefully that will, push some things faster than they are. But thank you so much, Dr. Benedict Obiosa, the Executive Secretary, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Promotion Group.
It's a pleasure for having me. Thank you very much.
For your time. Thank you. So other than just creating those products and services, customer relation, customer experience is also an important one, and that's from the crux of the meeting in Lagos. A group of individuals made up of heads of customer service departments of various organizations, producers of products and services, and even customers are here to emphasize the need to pay attention to customer experience as a way to retain patronage and generally keep demand on Nigerian products and services.
If, say for instance, I had a bad quality product, I may have the most amazing customer service or customer attendant. I may give you a chance. I would give you feedback. It's an opportunity for you to refine your product. But if consistently we're still getting bad quality products, my money is more valuable. I would move. What does that mean? I would move. I'll tell my friends. I'll tell my family.
Needless to say, without customers, there will be no business. However, there are other benefits to businesses.
There is an important cost savings when it comes to delivering customer service that is excellent in nature. You save significant amount of money marketing. You save significant amount of money forcing your customers to use your product, because by nature, they organically use the product based on the experience that they use, based on the experience that they have. So for us, there is a strong need for businesses to understand that the gap that exists between the product that any company offers and the experience that the customer feels when they use the product, that gap needs to be closed so that the customers see the product as the experience. There is no difference between the product and the experience. They have to be the same. And that is when customer experience becomes an engine of growth for the company.
Customer satisfaction is an integral part of any organization and should not be treated lightly. The message at this meeting. Yeah, customer service and the real sector there in focus. Now let's move back to the oil and gas sector. First of all, Channels Television commiserates with the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, on the loss of his daughter, who passed away on Friday. May her soul rest in perfect peace. And in spite of this, we see Mr. Kyari has been speaking to the issue of subsidy on PMS. That's the latest issue from the oil and gas in Nigeria. The need for a fully deregulated oil and gas sector in Nigeria. He was speaking to a group of journalists in Abuja.
In the last 40-something years, PMS has always been subsidized. And subsidy is creating arbitrage. That means there's a difference between price in one location lower than what it should be with another location. The evacuation from the table averaged 51 in recent times. And when Mr. President announced the removal of subsidy in June, what it did is calibrated price. It came to market. There's no longer any value in anyone taking the product across the border. If you do, you're not going to make those profits that you do. I'll give you an example. If the delta is significant, like if you are selling twice the price across in a 60-liter, 6,000-liter truck, can actually gain up to 70 million naira from just one truck. So how are you going to stop someone who can just with 2 trips across the border will make 17 times 2, which is the price of the truck itself. So if you don't arrest it, then it's over. He has made his money. Versus when you take a truck legally, you take it to maybe 8 million naira, for instance, to Maiduguri, the legitimate value you have is less than 500,000 naira. So why would I see 70 million naira and then take all the trouble, go to Maiduguri, keep it in the fuel station for 1 month and just make 300,000 to 400,000 naira? The challenge you have in all these countries, you have taxation on PMS. We don't have tax here. So in many of these countries, actually government revenue is dependent on the taxes that is coming on PMS. So you will see that until you balance for that, you recover your market costs and add taxation on it, there is no way you will ever get to a situation where there is some kind of market parity between us and our neighbors. But you will not be losing money as long as you are not in a subsidy regime. You won't lose money. The key challenge of security and what really means, when we started this process of intervention in 2022, we deactivated 8,384 illegal refineries. They are not refineries really, boiling pots, We don't know what name to call them, but the people call it a refinery. So maybe we borrow their own words. We deactivated 8,000. I'll show you what this means. I'm sure you are seeing it in the media and all this thing. Then you have illegal connections to the pipelines. 6,610 illegal connections to the pipeline. We have removed about 5,913. That means still you have over 1,000 that has not been removed. And they are there. And they connect every day as we remove. Yes, we have reduced the scale. Maybe they used to do 10, maybe they are only doing 1. That's why we are seeing the progress that we're seeing. In localities that we know all these locations, you just take a helicopter flight, you'll see this happening in real time. And then just imagine you are having 4,300 wooden boats in this environment. Pits, 20,941 recorded pits, dotted all over our production environment. And what does this mean? Now the issue of the communities now. When you have this, you're not going to have clean groundwater. Even when you drill shallow boreholes, you're going to find oil in the water. And of course, the degradation of the environment, the rivers, and everything that you can imagine has actually decimated livelihood of these communities. For the benefit of just very few people, maybe this 20,000, I'm sure, I don't know if you know, is actually now groups on it. They call it JV now. 10 people own one, 30 people own that. They call it joint venture now. For doing nothing, you take $80 crude and sell it for 40 for free. It's nothing. At a point, you may not be aware that imports of AGO in the country was almost nil, and there's no scarcity of AGO in the country. Yes, they're all refined, actually boiling, and at a point, everywhere you go is the same AGO that is coming from these creeks that we are using all over the country. So this is how far we have gone, and what is important is when you look at the chart in the middle, you'll see the decline. Our own projection now, and by August, that's the renewed intervention by the government security agencies are now brought out. The number of reported illegal connections and the refining is going to, we think if we maintain this to the end of the year, we'll be stable. But I'm also aware that there are a number of new steps that government is taking today that will probably decimate this, not entirely, but surely it will be better than where we are today. Is there a drive towards that? The answer is yes. Today, Mr. President has taken several bold steps towards making sure that the security interventions are clearly decimated. 2 fronts, and I don't want to speak too much about it because I don't want to discuss the security, what the actual interventions are, but the reality is that certain critical steps have been taken by government, and that's why we're seeing these results coming on. So at the end, what does it matter is for you to make sure that when you produce it, it gets to the terminal and then you evacuate it. And that intervention holds only one part of it. That's the fiscal part of it. The other part of it is the community part of it. As you all know, there are several attempts at ensuring inclusivity in our environment. The only way the communities can come into control of the interventions that can happen in their community is to make the resources available to them. And this will work. Yes, because is it of the scale that will change the entire environment? No, the answer is no. Probably this will complement in a much more practical way to bring alleviate suffering. And Mr. President, what he's doing now is to make sure that that intervention works. There's the inclusion both of the political class and also the economic class within the Niger Delta region, so that they are included in the scheme of things, that they have a different persuasion to ensure that sustaining production, increasing production, actually serves their interest more than looking at the overall big, let's share this money every month mentality that we have in the country. And I think this is why we are seeing this gradual recovery that we are seeing. Today, you know, we have a line of sight around what goes wrong, where it is getting wrong, when activities can actually be brought in to contain them. So it's paying off. And we believe that we can sustain this so that we can have that pathway to the 2 million barrels per day by the end of the year. And thereafter, we'll now see what next can we do. Gas, as you may all know, is a transition fuel, is where the new money will come. Chemicals largely come from gas, even though people are cracking crude to chemicals. But we know that chemical market will continue to be there. Gas will be made from chemical products. As we're going forward, we are seeing a lot of cars are now, the bodies are not metal anymore. So we know that this will grow. That's why we're very, very aggressive in ensuring that we supply gas into the market so that the power sector can continue to have a source of cheap feedstock, and also to have industries come up on the back of this. In today's term, we're actually supplying more than the market can take today into the market. Only NNPC can do this because nobody wants to deal with the domestic market for the obvious reason. Infrastructure is expensive, customers are difficult, so nobody is going to put their money. Of course, upstream people will not put money to produce the gas when they are not sure that the midstream operator can pay them back. This is a challenge that we are dealing with, but that's why this today, our supplies into the domestic market is robust. We're planning for growth, and growth means that more midstream infrastructure pipelines and also processing plants that we have to put in place.
Also in that media chat, Mr. Kyari had promised that there are some infrastructure to pass on gas and make it even more available and affordable. You heard him there saying that gas is now available, but of course the issue of affordable comes next. But he says he would refuse to give timelines because you know that the NNPC has been giving some timelines, which has come back to haunt them. For instance, there was the promise of Port Harcourt refinery, which was promised for September. And of course, I was privileged to be a part of that conversation. And that was one of the conversation coming up. And he did say, wow, they had that timeline and they were working towards it. Some unexpected mechanical issues cropped up, and he has promised not to give timeline anymore, not for the refineries, not for the gas infrastructure, which is ongoing. We saw some pictures right there at that event, you know. So he shared all of that, but it says he's being careful with giving timelines now, but promised that the refineries will work and the gas will also be in abundance in supply and affordable over time, you know, to the Nigerian public. So that was Mr. Mele Kyari, the Chief CEO, Group CEO, beg your pardon, of NNPCL right there. So, and that's where we'll hand over back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. I'll be back at 1 p.m. for Business Incorporated. Ladies, all the way in East Africa. We'll give you the gist at 1 p.m. Want to find out what Laddie Williams is doing, why he's not in the studio, while you have to work with me alone. That'll be Business Incorporated, 1 p.m. 55 minutes of business is what we'll be doing then. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. It's football. The reverse fixture of Nigeria versus Libya. Not supposed to be Libya versus Nigeria. It was supposed to be in Benghazi. But there's been a twist to this. You've seen the Super Eagles captain, William Troost-Ekong, has been tweeting about their recent development, their recent experience. And he did say in series of tweets, which is all over the place now, he says, I've experienced stuff before playing away in Africa, but this is disgraceful behavior. Even the Tunisian pilots who thankfully managed to navigate the last-minute change to an airport not fit for a plane to land had never seen something like this before. So that's the first one anyway. It says 12 hours plus in an abandoned airport in Libya after a plane was diverted whilst descending. Libyan government rescinded our approved landing in Benghazi with no reason. They've locked the airport gates and left us without a phone connection, food or drink, all to play mind games. He says, at this point, we've called for our Nigerian government to intervene and rescue us. As a captain, together with the team, we have decided that we will not, in caps, play this game. CAF should look at the report and what is happening here. Even if they decide to allow this kind of behavior, let them have the points. We will not accept to travel anywhere by road, here, or even with security. It's not safe. We can only imagine what the hotel or food will be like given to us if we continued. We respect ourselves and respect our opponents when they are our guests in Nigeria. Mistakes happen, but these things on purpose have nothing to do with international football. But there's been a statement from the Minister of Sports. The title here says, Senator John Owa-Eno condemns the actions of Libyan authorities holding hostage the Super Eagles and officials at Al-Akbak Airport. He said, the Honorable Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Owa-Eno, has strongly condemned the recent actions of Libyan authorities who held the Nigerian Super Eagles and the officials hostage at Al-Akbak Airport. This incident occurred after the Nigerian aircraft, originally en route to Benghazi, was diverted to another city over a 2-hour drive from the intended destination just an hour before landing. This diversion caused significant distress to the Super Eagles team, officials, and support staff who were left stranded and subjected to unnecessary delays. The Honorable Minister expressed deep concern over the poor treatment of the team, particularly as they were in Libya for an international engagement. Such actions, he goes on to say, by the Libyan authorities are deeply disturbing and completely unacceptable. Holding our national team and officials hostage under any circumstances violates not only international sporting protocols, but also the principles of respect and hospitality that should be extended to all visiting teams. The Nigerian government will not tolerate any form of disrespect or mistreatment toward our players and officials, he stated. So he's going to say they'll be working with the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and Internationals as well to see how they can ensure that things move on smoothly. So we've got, as you've seen in that welcoming slide, Ida Pizzazai, former Super Eagles keeper, joining us virtually to weigh in on this matter. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. So, wow, one can imagine, if you were in these shoes, what would you do?
Well, it's quite unfortunate, you know, that the Libyans have taken this more than we expected. This is not a war. We're not at war. It's sport. And then before the game, they had threatened to do this to us because they were complaining that we didn't treat them well when they came to Nigeria. But we need to clear the Nigerian aspects first before we talk about what's happening in Libya. When they called that they were coming in, you know, there was communication with the NFF and the Libya Federation that they were coming to play the game. And they had told the NFF that they were going to land in Lagos. And while they landed, that they would land in Lagos, but there was this communication to them that they should not land in Lagos, they should go to Uyo directly. And had cars and had protocol to wait for them in in Uyo. They only landed in Port Harcourt. Now, when they landed in Port Harcourt, the private jet that they came with had to go back, and they needed to go from Uyo from Port Harcourt to Uyo. But the NFF were not expecting them in Uyo. So they were angry. And so they had to drive. You know, quite unfortunately, the roads are terrible from here to Uyo. So they drove about 2-3 hours, and they said they were going to take revenge, which is exactly what they're trying to do. But this is sports. It's not fair. We had already spoken to them, cleared the air that the mistake was coming from the Libya Federation. And it's quite unfortunate that we're still dealing with such issues in 2024. While we were playing, these things were rampant. If you remember a trip we went to in Congo, we got to Congo, and they took us to an army barrack, army airstrip. From that army airstrip, we stayed there in Congo for about 4 hours. And from there, now they had to use this Hercules plane that they go to war with to be able to move us to go and play the game in Congo. These things used to happen some 10, 15 years ago. It's quite unfortunate that in this time, we need to call the Libyan Federation to order. Some of us are already sending message to those in charge of CAF, and it's been a habit. They've been doing this. We're not migrants, you know, trying to cross the sea and go look for greener pastures. This is the Super Eagles. It's the Nigerian national team. That team represents the whole of Nigeria and should be treated with respect. You know, this must go to CAF and FIFA. Something must be done. I hear a decision has been taken that they should not play the game. It's even more than that, Chamberlain. What is happening now is that they are saying this is 17 hours now. As at the last few minutes I spoke to Libya, they are saying that the plane cannot even leave Al-Abad airport. That the players must now join a bus and drive to Benghazi. This is a war territory. It's a war zone. They are not even allowing them to leave.
So we're held hostage?
Yes, we've been held hostage. They were held hostage. They say you can only go by road, that this airport, the airport is not functional. It's supposed to be for Hajj, people that go for Hajj.
So why did they allow us land there then?
Because they wanted to revenge. They wanted, because the plane was almost landing in Benghazi. And they tried to, for no reason. Ironically, there's a game being played by Sudan. Sudan is playing, I think, Ethiopia, somebody there. They allowed them to land in Benghazi. And these guys are playing in Benghazi. They're playing in Benghazi today, I suppose. And the Super Eagles will play tomorrow. So they are holding our team hostage and asking them not to begin to travel by road from the city where the plane landed and go to Benghazi. You know, we all heard of Benghazi war. Who forgets that there were shootings and killings and all the terrorism going there?
Okay.
Imagine the Super Eagles Nigerian team going on that road without security.
So the thing is this, on the part of Nigeria, probably CAF as well, when this came up, was it that Nigeria had no objections about playing in Libya, or is it that we played in Libya before, but ever since this scenario came up, this war situation in Libya, shouldn't we have at least said something to CAF that, look, we're not exactly sure if it's a good idea to play
You know, in some years ago, they were not allowed to play their games in Libya. But things have quieted down. You see, the games are not being played in Tripoli because they have basically three governments. They have three governments in Libya, and it's in Benghazi that it's more stable. Benghazi is more stable, it's more friendly. The stadiums there are quite professional. So they don't play in Tripoli, so they play in Benghazi. So after a while, FIFA approved that Benghazi can be used for games. That's why every team goes to play there in Benghazi. But our players, the government must do something. I don't know what they will say. They will have a private jet there from Value Jet. I think they hire Value Jet every time they make this trip. And the Value Jet plane is still there. And they've not allowed the plane to leave. They've not allowed the players to get into the plane. It's 17 hours. And you know that this, the fortunate thing for the players, some of them, is that they live in Europe. And it's winter there. So if you see the boys, they're all covered up wearing shorts and they are at the airport, they can't change, no hot water, no food. Secondly, most times when we go for these games, we have to move our own meals, carry our own food. They have confiscated the food. Every food we brought into Nigeria, we brought into Libya, they have seized them. They've seized the meals. They've sent me pictures of security men, confiscating our food. It's just unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable.
So, at this point, is it that CAF, what can CAF likely do here? Because if this is allowed to happen in African football, then I don't know what else to say about it.
Chairman, this is not about football anymore. This is gone beyond football. You are holding a nation hostage. So even if you call CAF will have to speak to some government official, the president and all that. So why don't we boycott CAF and speak to the presidency or their embassy here and then let the players come out? Someone just asked me, do you expect the players to play? No, we can't play. The game is tomorrow. The venue of the game is still in Benghazi.
Yeah, but so how can they play with this mindset? If they are being treated this way, no food, no drinks, psychologically, how can they be comfortable enough to play? Who knows what will happen to them if they go into that Benghazi?
If the NFF president allows them to play, when he comes in, we arrest him immediately because it's a sabotage. These players can't play. You know these jet lag things people talk about. When we are home, we never understood it. When you travel this far distance, your legs are in shoes, your legs are in canvases and all that. There's no blood flow, And this evening, by the rules and by the laws, they are supposed to limber up. They're supposed to be at the stadium and is trying to stretch themselves to remove the fatigue. Then tomorrow morning, they will take a long walk. That long walk is just to allow the blood to flow from the brain to the head before the game. They've not allowed them to do this. Therefore, they are not physically, mentally fit to play, and the players should be put in the next available jet, whatever it is, and brought back home.
What if CAF says we lose the 3 points? Would that be acceptable to us?
Well, we've written, I think by now they would have done a letter to CAF. It's unacceptable. The conditions are there, pictures are there. Even if they said we lose the 3, but we can still qualify. We are top of the league, we have 1 or 2 more games to play.
No, but we should be able to contest that. It means if we are allowed to lose the 3 points, it means in a way we're tacitly saying this behavior is acceptable.
Acceptable. It's not just that. Rivers United went to play. If you hear the tales, we're in an African group where top African journalists are. The stories there are unacceptable. So other countries are complaining. What is this? Sudan, not Sudan, the one with Ghana Drown is there. They're complaining about the treatment these Libyans are melting out to different teams. They must be called to order. They have to be
But why
sanctioned.
is CAF not doing anything? Are they incompetent or something? This is not right.
That's what we're saying. It's the North Africans. Unfortunately, North Africans run football in Africa. It's the North Africans, the Algerians, the Moroccans, and Egyptians.
So can the rest of Africa come together and say this is unacceptable? They are not lords.
This is. We wait for them to take the decisions, and we will see, because we must complain, and the noise is louder. Every day for the thief, one day for the owner. This time it has turned out that way. The complaints that are coming up from what's happening in Libya is generational. So we need to deal with this issue and make sure that, look, our government must sit up there holding our players, 35 Nigerians or thereabout, hostage. You see, plus journalists. So a lot of people are just seeing the players. You have board members in that place. You have doctors. You have curators. You have journalists that they traveled with. So it's not just the 23 players. We're talking about close to 40 Nigerians that are being held hostage in a foreign airport. We must get them out now.
Well, I'm looking at, looking at the papers this morning, and I'm also seeing here that it doesn't appear that Libya too is in order. Not making any excuses for them, but there are no excuses to be made for the kind of behavior that we've seen. But here's what we're saying now. Ahead of Eagles clash tomorrow, Libya in disarray as FA president resigns. So it does appear that they also have their own internal issues, rocking their own FA. Do you think that could also have any effect on what is currently happening with our Super Eagles now?
Well, that's internal. I hear they've not been winning a lot of games, and the pressure has been. The coach is my friend. They call him Micho. Micho spoke to me while Nigeria was playing against Libya. You know, they fired him a week before the game against Nigeria. So they've just sacked their coach. And I think the pressure is on the FA president that the Libyan side is not doing well. You know, he is just a figurehead. Every other thing on there should be working. In this particular case, I think when they got into Nigeria, when we played against them here, they had reports. Their newspapers and TV cameras were relaying evil news back to Libya. They were complaining. I saw one of the interviews of the captain. He said, "We will avenge what people have done to us." And the media guy asked him, "What did we do?" He said, "You abandoned us in Port Harcourt because we were not expecting them to land in Port Harcourt." Then they came with 3 batches. You know, quite unfortunate. They had to take some smaller buses, 3 of them from Port Harcourt to Uyo, and they complained that it was a neglect. But the NFF came out and said, "No. The landing point, you communicate, FS communicate, secretaries communicate. Our flight is leaving at so time, we will land here so. That's how it's done in international football."
Yes, but how did that sort of mistake even? I mean, this is not to, you know, as I said, it's not to justify what has happened to our own team, but how did that kind of mistake happen? When it's not like I said, the flight was diverted mid-air. How do you land in Port Harcourt when you are supposed to be going to Uyo?
No, the information, you know, you need to look at how they look at us outside. Everybody knows Lagos and Abuja. Now, if you're playing in a different city, most times by the laws here, they would get to Lagos first. I think that's what they did. You need to get to Lagos first. And when you clear whatever you need to clear, then, because it's not a flight there's an international flight that can leave from their location straight to, because of security. You don't know what they're carrying. So most times, when international games like this, you either will fly to Abuja and you fly to Lagos to get clearance for the international process to take place. And you take responsibility. What happens is the FA, if you are not playing in the capital city, the FA will take responsibility. Well, the NFF were ready because they said to us that they had contingents there. They had protocol officers there. They were supposed to now clear them out there and then move them to Uyo, right? So they did get to Lagos. They got to Lagos, but didn't come out, and they flew from Lagos to Uyo, Port Harcourt. I don't know what the mix-up is all about. So they're very bitter about it and are planning on taking their revenge.
Well, it's really a shame what happened in Nigeria, and I'm sure a bigger disgrace what is going on in Libya right now with how our team is being handled. If what you're saying, the fact that we're being held hostage is correct, then the question is, how do we get out of there? Because even if you say you want to come home now, the chances are very high that they might say, you're not going to go. Maybe you'll be forced to play this game. How do you think we can get out of that place, you know, without any issues?
They can't force us to play. We are humans. You have to tie our boots and all that. It's not diplomatic. This is beyond football. It's beyond CAF. It's a diplomatic issue. The government must speak to the ambassador here for the players to be evacuated. It's as simple as that. It's a government thing. The minister says it's on it. He has to speak to the presidency or whoever is involved, and these players must be evacuated.
Ayo.
Thank you, Maokwe. So one of the questions that's been on my mind all the while has been just this main issue of what should the Libyan government do about this matter? Because as you said, it's become more beyond something that's beyond sports now. Is now a lot more about diplomacy. What would you recommend that the Libyan government or the Nigerian government should be saying to the Libyan government, particularly about this particular issue?
We don't want to play anymore. We can play. So let us go. Now, they are not allowing us to go. You see what I'm saying? We've already sent.
I'm actually looking beyond. I'm actually looking beyond the issue of of playing the match and all. I'm looking at a higher level of government to government now, a G2G kind of communication about this particular. What informed it in the first place, or what should the Libyan government be doing? What should the Nigerian government be doing about this one now? The minister has spoken. Can we say that that is a statement of the federal government on this matter? How should we be engaging the Libyan government on this issue now?
Yeah, they obviously, I'm not into diplomacy, but they must look for the ambassador. There must be an ambassador here and get across to him, for him to get across to their government to say, let our players go. Just let them leave the country. And I think, these are countries, this diplomacy. One phone call, okay, release the plane and I hope they even have diesel or I don't know what they use, jet fuel there, for the plane to be able to move directly from that small airport out of the country. It's diplomatic. Call the minister here, the ambassador here, to get across to the ambassador. Just let our players go. We don't want to play anymore. We don't want to do. Just let them go. I think at that level, that's what they need to begin to talk about.
Well, Chamberlain, I would say that, on the one hand is this issue of, being sports. On the other hand, I'm wondering how this kind of thing would happen within Africa. You cited that the other time. Is this the kind of orientation that is going on within the African Union? One wonders.
This one is personal by the Minister of Sports himself. And part of that statement says, all through the night, I have escalated the matter and involved all necessary authorities from the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the National Security Advisor, the DGNIA, Amaju Pinnick, our CAF executive member. I have also remained in touch with both the president of the NFF, who is on ground with the team, and the chairman of ValueJet, owners of the plane that airlifted the team to Libya. All hands must be on deck to protect our national team. He goes on to say, as sports minister, I have instructed the NFF president to lay a formal complaint to CAF without prejudice to any actions already taken. This must be on record and thoroughly investigated. Mr. Peterside, this is signed by the Minister of Sports himself. So I think it's about time. And probably, who knows, it might be, for a long time before Nigeria decides to ever step foot to play any match in Libya, because now, which government are we talking about now? 3 groups laying claim. What the one group refuses tomorrow, the other doesn't agree. So it's always dangerous going to those kind of places.
Yes, it is. It is. Well, again, thank you to the minister. I'd already gotten the press release he made. It's actions now. We're following, we're speaking to the guys there. It is 17 hours, it's already 17 hours. Obviously, there will be toilets and all that, but they're not taking their shower. They're trying to see how they can make it with the kind of food, but they already confiscated their food. So it's a very bad situation. And the minister and all those involved should do something speedily.
Yes, indeed. At that point, we'll leave it. It doesn't matter if they say they run football. No, they cannot run. They don't own football on the continent, so a lot more should be done. Unless, of course, the rest of Africa are okay with what's going on. I want to thank you for joining us this morning, Ida Peterside.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, so there you go. That is it today. On the program, we'll be looking to see what next steps are taken. But above all else, the Super Eagles must be gotten out of that disgraceful and unacceptable situation almost immediately, one might add. Well, thank you all for watching. We'll see you again next time. I'm Chamberlain Oso. Goodbye.
Indeed. Thank you. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Have a productive day.
And a productive week. I'm Ayo Makinde.